Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to be doing our last special selection for this weekend, and that special selection comes at us from Adam Cordova. Says Megathelioma by Symbiosis Drum Playthrough. I actually have that backwards. The song's called Symbiosis. The band is Megathelioma. All right, and this is going to be the drum playthrough for them. I'm going to check this out. I don't know what I'm getting into here. I have no no idea what this band is even going to be like. Not even like a general genre. So let's just dive in and see what's going on with these guys. Yeah, so we have a nice 2-bar phrase, and the interesting thing is that the second bar starts on the and of one. Alright, we've shifted to more of a straight idea here, really working on the downbeat of each bar. We had a bit of chaos there starting with, but we're moving into more of a groovy section here. Almost like psychedelic elements. Yeah. Very cool guitar run there, but then also some really interesting ideas going on in the drums that weren't really part of any patterns. Got those nice ghost snares. I don't know what time signature we're in. I'm having a real hard finding downbeats. Yeah, some really cool vocal layering there between clean and harshes. The bass has just been tearing it up this whole time, laying down some nice bass work for all the atmospheric stuff to go on. We got layered harshes going on in the vocals. Dude, everything going on here with the drums is just wild. They keep the psychedelic element, but they're kind of all over the place with the feeling, the emotions of their sections. interesting. I have a little bit of difficulty talking about this one because the core of what I typically talk about, which is going to be more of the musical aspect, harmony, melody, dissonance, consonance, contrast, most of the work that's not the rhythmic element in the drums, uh, it was not very strong in the mix. And I don't know if that's the way it's intended or if it was just the way that this was shot and maybe it was dropped down a little bit in the mix to emphasize the drum since this is a drum playthrough. But it was it wasn't even just that it was quieter. It had that super high compression sort of toilet bowl effect. If you were to try to remove background noise from an extremely noisy situation with, say, a cheap microphone or something, and it loses all of the character, and that's kind of what it felt like. Which could have just been that it was being piped through speakers next to the drum kit. Um, I don't know. Or, of course, like I said, this could be entirely how it's intended, just with the levels changed a little bit for the drum playthrough. I don't know, but it made it very difficult to hone in on the guitars and the vocals. And so most of what I would consider my bread and butter and what I analyze was difficult for me to make out, and I don't feel that I have enough information after listening to it to really talk about anything concrete about it. However, there was some really cool things that I picked up on, so we're going to touch on some of those and see where that takes me. To begin with, the guitar work, a lot of the atmosphere stuff that was being created with it was extremely psychedelic. It had a nice reverb sort of feel going on, with just this like swirling element to it. And I'm pretty sure that's reverb. My brain kind of thinks panning as well, but it wasn't panning ear to ear. It was kind of panning in tone, like running into the treble end and then pulling out some of the bass undertones, then moving back to the overtones, getting this little warble idea. So I'm not sure what modulation that is, but it gives it to me the psychedelic idea going on with a lot of the guitar tones, which is very cool because it works well with the laid back elements that we saw at the beginning and closer to the end with the drums and the vocals, and the way that they really got brought down and kind of centered the piece apart from all the chaos that we saw throughout the middle of the track. And I thought it all worked very nicely. Um, and really, that psychedelic element is really the only thing that really sticks with. I just said really so many times. The psychedelic element is the thing that really sticks with me throughout the song. I would have to give it another listen to, probably with a proper studio recording, to really understand what's going on with the rest of that. However, we can move to the bass, and there's so much good bass work in here. It really does drive the melody home while the guitar is holding chords and moving through these psychedelic elements in the atmosphere. The bass is sitting on the bottom with this fat tone and just walking some bass lines, which is fantastic. Usually, with something like this, where it kind of converges into more metal areas, bass tends to kind of take a back seat. And even if they are displayed in the mix, it's usually some more simplistic ideas, maybe uh, holding down a root note or a pedal tone, and occasionally having a riff thrown in there, some sort of run, maybe at the end of a bar or at the end of a passage. But it was really nice just to hear the bass really holding down the melodic element of the song and being the key melody line for a lot of it. Now, it is walking the bass line, it still is heavily chordal structured, whereas melody can kind of sit around a single note and kind of flirt around it or make huge jumps. Octave wise, the bass really did walk up and down chords. So I wouldn't say that it had the lead melody line so to speak, but it was the most melodic aspect of the song, so I am going to attribute it to being the lead melodic instrument, even though it was mostly doing bass lines. And it's not to say that bass lines can't be melodic leads, it's just they're usually the color that the melody plays over. It's the chordal work, it's the foundation. So it's just an atypical application of a bass line. It's kind of interesting to hear that actually. Usually, when the bass is given some spotlight, it's given them a melody line instead of continuing to walk the bass line, so to speak. So I think that's really cool to take a typical chordal based bass line and still give it the spotlight and see where that goes. And like I said, it contrasts very well, very nicely against the atmospheric stuff that the guitars are doing. The vocals are interesting in that there's so many different styles of them. There were two harsh styles and a clean style, and in several sections they were overlaid on each other, and it created very interesting textural ideas. And I've mentioned before that I love cleans and harsh vocals being mixed together, harmonized, or doing counterpoint between them and providing just that contrast in texture. I think it's fantastic. I think it's one of the best things that rock and metal do that not many other genres do. And I'm glad to hear that on full display here, not only just with cleans and harshes, but multiple different harsh styles being played or being sung with each other. It makes me wonder how many vocalists are in the band, if it's just one highly talented one who double tracks himself, does his own backing tracks, or if there's like the guitarist does some growls or something like that. Now, of course, this was a drum playthrough, is specifically requested to be the drum playthrough, so we should talk about the drums a little bit, no? They were the most prominent part of this specific mix, mixed higher than everything else and a bit clearer. And I think I can definitely see why it was specifically asked that I check out this drum playthrough. The drums are jaw dropping in parts. There's some really nice sections that have wild runs to them, but there's also some really cool parts where the drum pattern, I don't, I've talked about this before. I don't know what to call them. We can't really call them a riff. That's more of a melodic idea. We refer to them as guitar riffs. Licks, same thing. It's more of a melodic thing. We would say, hey, check out this, saxophone lick. That's more of a jazz thing, but it's pretty synonymous with the rock idea of a riff. But with drums, I don't know what to call them. And so I've had people say, hey, just call them patterns. And that makes sense when there's a loop, but what if they don't loop? Anywho, so there were, like I said, there was some really nice runs at the end of patterns, but then there were some sections that seemed to not really have a repetition. It was more melodic based, more like playing or writing a melody line for the drums, and I thought that was really cool. It might have just been that the loop itself was rather large, and I didn't see the bigger picture of where the loop was, but it was just really cool, I think, to see some lines that are not repetition based in drumming. There's also that section in the middle that I could not figure out the time signature for, and that was a much longer pattern as well, although I could hear the repetition. I just couldn't place where it necessarily started. I think it was an on and off beat, much like in the beginning. The very first idea in the song was in 4/4. It was a 2-bar phrase, however, the second bar began on the end of 1, giving it this disjointed feeling where the downbeat comes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and we naturally emphasize that 1, and it wasn't emphasized. It was actually the end of 1, and it gives it this disjointed, skipping a beat feeling without actually using an unusual time signature to do that. And I wonder if that's what was happening here. Maybe it was a standard time signature. Maybe it was something simple like 4/4 or 3/4, but it just utilized interesting times to accent a beat or an end of a beat, which leads it to feel like it never starts or stops where it's expected. And it looped around 4 times at least, and I still couldn't nail it down. So that's something I would have to go back and maybe even get some sheet music and try to transpose it and figure it out that way rather than just by using my ear on a first listen. So I think there's some really cool ideas here rhythmically. I also like the when we hit that slow section near the end and the drummer pulled in some ghost snares. Beautiful. All right, that's basically the thing that really stands out to me with the drumming. I had mentioned that there's beautiful runs, there's really nice patterns, there's really nice sections that seem to be patternless, they're not loop based. And then, of course, we have some highs, which is some ridiculously fast metal drumming. We have those ridiculous double bass kicks that were like 16th to 32nd notes. Really long fills just rolling down all the drums. And then we also have these really nice introspective, slower, calmer moments, like at the end, where the drummer can kind of just get into a nice groove with the hi-hat and the snare and the bass and get this nice, simple, calming element as well. And there's so much versatility in the drumming. And that to me is the big standout here. He reminds me of other dynamic drummers like the dude from Leprous. And the dude from. I should probably start learning these band members' names. I think that was Bayard. And then the dude from Tool is another dynamic drummer I can think of. Carey. Those are the two that come to mind first. I'm sure there's plenty. I'm going to be forgetting them. But those are the two that really come to mind when I think of dynamic playing and having a ton of versatility. And I would put this guy in there as the dude from just lost it. That's a shame. It might be between the Buried and Me. It might be. Dang. Anyways, I would put this guy in the same camp as those. He has an extremely dynamic, varied style of playing, and he can move between a ton of ideas while also retaining his own style and meeting the needs of the section while also amplifying it. Um, I think there was one section that it felt like everybody was going heavy and he was kind of putting a little bit of a softer spin on it, not really going into that full metal mode quite yet and providing an interesting transition between those two ideas. So, yeah, like I said, kind of putting his own spin on things while also just working with what each section needs. Just fantastic drumming all around. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of really cool things going on in here. When I'm done with this video, I'm probably going to check out the studio version of this just because I am interested in how it sounds and because I do think I might enjoy this casually. There's a lot of really cool things going on, and it sounds like it's up my boat. No, it sounds like it's up my alley. But like I said, it's a little difficult to tell with this specific set of audio, and I'm not sure what that was, so that's why I didn't mention much about the mix other than some of that earlier stuff I talked about. So this was Adam. Yes, Adam Cordova. Excellent pick. I can't wait to dive into the studio version and see what I think of that as well. But as for getting my attention, you got it. I'm very interested in a megathelioma, and the name sounds familiar, but I don't think I've heard it in reference to a band. So I'm not sure why that name sounds familiar to me and why it just rolls off my tongue so easily, despite being a bit complex. I don't know, but I got to dive into these guys and see what else they're doing. Those are just my thoughts, though. This is where you guys come in. No, hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Let me know where I should check out next. All right, my gut instinct is to find the album this is on and start there. But if you guys know a better place for me to dive into this band and explore more of their works, hit me up. Put those things down in the comments. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. There's a link in there for Linktree, which is a nifty menu that houses everything related to critical reactions, Discord, Twitter, Patreon, special selections, any of it. It's all there, and it's in a nice, neat menu for you to parse. Above that, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell, all those things help out the channel immensely. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. with next week's theme, which I'm pretty sure is new releases. I don't know why I don't know why I never remember this stuff. I feel like every Sunday we come up here and I'm like, all right, tomorrow we're starting our next week's theme and I should be on top of the ball. I got to start it in, in like 18 hours and I just never remember what we're doing. I'm pretty sure it's new releases though. We're going to check out some music that's been released in the last month or two. I think 2 months is my cutoff for that theme. So we're going to look at some stuff that's just come out, which I'm pretty excited about. I always love checking out new music. While we were doing the live stream today, I saw that Bridge City Sinners has a new one out. I got to check that one out. And as usual, if I enjoy it, I'll toss it up on the Discord server. We'll have some discussion, and I'll throw it up in the YouTube community post. We can have some discussion there as well. All right, until next time, remember, be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.